This is going to be the last session in monitoring and controlling, and we are gonna discuss the key takeaways from each of the, let's say, processes. Look at the best practices. What are these common, let's say, pitfalls, and how to avoid them. So it can be considered as final session that summarizes all of the monitoring and controlling process. So monitoring and controlling is the backbone of project success, and without a proper tracking, teams may deviate from the project plan, leading to cost overruns and schedule delays and quality issues. A proactive approach ensures that the risks are mitigated and project objectives are constantly aligned with the stakeholder expectations. Some of these key takeaways from monitoring and controlling process group here. Uh, we looked at some of these essential lessons, including continuous performance tracking is important for early issue detection. Uh, Risk management must be proactive, not reactive. When we talked about the stakeholder engagement, which is an ongoing process to ensure the alignment through project life cycle. We also learned about the change control process must be strict to prevent any scope creep. We also emphasize the importance of having data driven decision making to improve the project control and efficiency. At the same time, we talked about these common mistakes to avoid, such lack of real time tracking, which leads to unexpected project failures. We also looked at ignoring the stakeholder feedback, which might cause some resistance and misalignment, which you need to avoid. We also looked at some of these examples where there is a failure to enforce the change control procedures, resulting in an uncontrolled scope expansion. So, all of these mistakes you need to avoid. Successful project managers emphasize the continuous monitoring to ensure their project stays within defined constraints. Every decision should be supported by performance data, risk assessment, and stakeholder input. Now let's look about on one of these best practices for having an effective monitoring and controlling. To achieve effective control, project managers must be structured, um, use structured methodologies like earned value management, trend analysis, and various reporting. Combining these techniques with strong communication and automation ensures that the project stays on track. And these key strategies that we have looked at during the monitoring and controlling the project is using the earned value management or EVM to track the cost and schedule performance. We also looked at regular variance analysis to identify the deviations early and how to implement strong risk response planning to address the uncertainties. We also have learned how to keep communication clear. We talked about its importance to ensure the stakeholder involvement. What else we have? Also, we looked at utilizing these automated tools for real-time monitoring and reporting to enhance the decision making and the transparency. We talk about these common pitfalls that uh, emphasizes the importance of avoiding these pitfalls and how to prevent falling into these pitfalls. Talked about the scope creep, and scope creep is one of these, let's say, most of the reasons or the pitfalls comes of the project failures. It comes because of the scope creep. So to avoid falling into scope creep is by utilizing or using a strict change control process to manage the modifications and changes. The next common pitfall here we have is poor risk monitoring. And poor risk monitoring, you can avoid it by keeping the risk register updated regularly and reviewing it and implementing these contingency plans. The next common pitfall here we have is lack of data driven decision. And to overcome lack of data driven decision, can, let's say, use KPIs or trend analysis and predictive analytics, make informed choices. One of these common pitfalls and challenges that you might face and how to avoid it by having, let's say, to avoid the stakeholder resistance is by conducting a regular engagement meeting and adjust the strategies based on the feedback of these stakeholders. So again, every project faces challenges, but recognizing these common pitfalls early helps the teams to avoid them. And by applying these best practices in risk management, scope control, and stakeholder engagement, the project success must be predictable. What is the role of data analytics in project control? Using data analytics in monitoring and controlling provides better insights into project performance, helping teams to make proactive decisions rather than just reacting to issues after they arise. And some of these key analytical tools that we have already discussed and we have seen examples of um, trend analysis, one of these to detect the patterns and the schedule and cost performance. We also looked at the variance analysis to measure the deviations from the baseline when we were covering the AVM formulas. Monte Carlo simulation, which predicts the project risks and possible outcomes. And finally, we looked at the key dashboards and reporting tools to provide real time insights for decision making. And these common pitfalls when, let's say, you need to avoid when utilizing these data analytics and project control. Remember that failure to integrate real time data leads to poor decision making. Also, ignoring the predictive analysis results in the last minute risk exposure. So, ignoring the predictive analysis results in last minute risk exposure. Effective change management and monitoring and controlling, which we talked many times about how to handle changes. It's important to have a structured way to handle the changes. So, again, now it's time to remind ourselves on every project will face some change, but controlling it effectively prevents the disruptions. And a strong change management framework ensures only necessary and approved modification or changes are implemented. We talked about the key components of having a change control, include formal change request process to ensure the proper evaluation. We also looked at the impact assessment as the one of these important steps to assess the impact of that change on the project constraints, including the scope, the cost, schedule, and quality and risks as well. What else we have as part of the key components of the change control? Also, we looked at the stakeholder approvals for the implementation, talked also about the change control board, which is the CCB, who is a key stakeholders and some of the organizational expert who make these decisions to approve or reject the changes. We also looked at the change logs and documentation to maintain transparency as part of the key components of the change control. We also looked at these common pitfalls to avoid, such as unapproved changes, which can cause uncontrolled scope creep. And also the failure to assess the impact leads to resource shortages. So you need to avoid these pitfalls when handling changes. Stakeholder engagement and communication control. We say that maintaining a strong stakeholder engagement is critical and crucial in project monitoring. By having a regular updates and feedback, you ensure that the expectation remains aligned and reducing the resistance of these stakeholders and improving the project outcomes. Talk about these key strategies for the stakeholder management and involvement, including regular progress update using status reports. Also, we looked at feedback loops to ensure stakeholder concerns are addressed. What else we have? We have the escalation paths for resolving issues quickly. and the importance of having escalation paths. What else we have? We have tailoring the communication methods for different stakeholders. As I mentioned, need to ensure the communication is tailored based on the stakeholder needs and the stakeholder level of involvement. Also, we talked about the technical stakeholders, the non-technical stakeholders, the executives levels, the lead teams, or the let's say the communication team of the project. So each of them you need to tailor the communication based on their needs, based on level of understanding of the project. So yeah, and these common pitfalls that you need to avoid when dealing with the stakeholders and engaging and communicating with the stakeholders during the monitoring and controlling process group, including the lack of engagement, which leads to misalignment and resistance. We also talked about the poor communication, which create misunderstanding and project delays. So you need, as a project manager, to avoid these pitfalls or challenges. Ensuring long-term project success through controlling the measures. So long-term project success depends on continuous improvement. By standardizing the monitoring processes, also investing in tools and fostering a learning culture, organizations can enhance the project outcomes. We had long-term strategies, including standardizing the control process across different projects. We also talked about continuous improvement through lessons learned, the importance of documenting these lessons. Also, we have seen how investing in project management tools for automation it can enhance the process. Finally, we talked about the training teams and proactive monitoring techniques, which can help your long-term goals when handling the projects. These common pitfalls where we need to avoid like failure to document these lessons learned, which results in repeated mistakes. Also, lack of investment in monitoring tools, which leads to inefficiencies. So these are the common pitfalls that you, as a project manager, you need to avoid falling into when planning or deploying these long-term strategies. The lessons learned from real-world projects. So analyzing real-world cases studies it helps the project managers to refine their monitoring and controlling strategies for future projects. By having an early risk identification will help you prevent major disruption within your project. The other lesson here we can learn is scope control ensures the project stability. Third thing you have is proactive stakeholder management improves the engagement. Finally, we talked about regular variance analysis and trend analysis, which keeps the project on track and enable you as a project manager to take proactive actions. This will be our last slide on monitoring and controlling, and we'll finish it by these final takeaways and closing thoughts. So, strong monitoring and controlling creates the foundation for successful project execution, ensuring that the objectives are met efficiently and effectively. Remember that effective monitoring ensures the project control and success, and proactive risk and change management prevents major disruptions. As well as stakeholder engagement and clear communication are essential to ensure the stakeholders' satisfaction. Finally, lessons learned must be documented for the future improvements and to achieve the project success.